Hello and welcome to my next video about my everyday enchantment tarot. Before I begin, very quickly, I'd just like to stress two things. The first is that I'm using male pronouns because I'm talking about my cards, and I'm not saying that these archetypes that I'm discussing or the characters are exclusively male within the tarot. That's just who I'm referring to here. And the second thing I'd like to say is that I do absolutely think that the Hermit and the Hierophant are equally valid. I might personally feel more akin to the independent Hermit, but I completely respect the Hierophant as a caring person of integrity, and I hope that comes across. I want to give balance here and not be favouring one over the other. This is just my personal interpretation, and I hope it's a fair one and that it helps you in some way. So to me, the fundamental difference between the Hermit and the Hierophant is that the Hermit offers us a direct line to hidden truth. He's about autonomy and evolving a personal creed to live by, based on questioning and understanding, not just absorbing the information and regurgitating it, but really understanding it at a deep level. So he encourages a kind of do-it-yourself spirituality, and spiritual development is very important. It's about development. It's not about just being stuck in a belief system, but actually through understanding, developing our own way of being. The Hierophant, on the other hand, is an intermediary. He comes between us and the mysteries and interprets them for us. He presents us with a preordained set of beliefs, basically, be they Christian with a capital C, pagan with a capital P, or Buddhist with a capital B. You can see all of the belief systems are represented, or a lot of the major ones are represented behind him here on his board that is behind him, that he's pointing upwards. He's very much a sort of an uppercase official type of man. That's his role. And he requires us to learn the rules and not adapt them to suit ourselves, and to have faith in what he preaches or teaches. So he represents, rather than the spirituality, he represents religion, and we could say blind belief or doing as we're told, which has its place, which I'll mention again later. The Hermit is open to all viewpoints and can synthesize them into his own idiosyncratic and constantly evolving philosophy. That's where the understanding comes in. It's continually growing and developing. And he's flexible, which is one of the reasons why I depicted him in this kind of yoga posture with his comfortable clothes on. He's flexible. The Hierophant, he can expound all these doctrines, and he is well aware of them. He's a very learned man, but he doesn't require that we apply our own discernment to them like the Hermit does. The Hermit is what we could say is he's bespoke, and the Hierophant is sort of ready-made. He's off the peg. He just presents it to us as it is and expects us to take that on board as it is. Sorry if I'm moving the camera there. I'm gesticulating to myself as I'm talking. So the Hermit he's on a quest, he's in a quest, and that suggests to us that there is some sort of progression there, and he wants to know for the sake of personal growth. He might choose at some point, when he's moved on from this phase, he might choose to write a book or to teach a course. He might go out there and actually share what he's learned, but there again, he sees that individual development is just as valid in itself as doing those things in the world, because ultimately that self-development benefits the all with a capital A. It's not selfish necessarily with a small s, it's selfish with a capital S as regards to the greater self. So he thinks that, you know, in making himself the best version of himself he can, that benefits the all without him actually going out there and doing anything about it. But the Hierophant is always involved in community. That is very much his role in the world. And although he could be perceived as more dogmatic and rigid, he's also very actively altruistic. He can be seen to be doing something worthwhile, which is something that society would give much more credence to than perhaps this man here in his introverted state, appearing to do nothing. which is not true, but this man is obviously very much there and is a pillar of the community. So he's going to get more rewards for that, really, in terms of society. And he shows his caring by keeping tradition alive and giving each new generation, as is shown by these youngsters in the classroom here, he's giving them the benefit of his wisdom, of the prescribed guidelines for a decent, upright life as he sees it, and indeed as society would condone it to be. You could say he's less creative and he's less expansive and less expressive, but what he offers, which is really important, is stability, continuity, and a sense of belonging. And that might be really invaluable to us at the point where we encounter him, that sense that we're part of something solid, real in the world, and that we matter within that framework. That's important. And sometimes we need that direction that he offers and being told what to do. We might be adrift, and this is exactly what we need. We might choose to kick against him as an obstacle to our self-expression, or we can welcome the Hierophant as very much a rock in a hard place who offers comfort and certainty when we're feeling a bit all at sea. He encourages us to knuckle down, follow the timetable and not deviate, and that will get us from A to B or A to Z, whatever. It offers us that very regimented framework that gets things done. And in that way, he's, sorry if I'm moving the camera a lot there, he's a responsible governor, or a councillor in terms of like a local official. He's that kind of councillor, as opposed to, let's move over here a second, this kind of counsellor, which is my version of the Hermit in my Wild Spirit deck, which is this sort of a counsellor, somebody that is more empathetic and open and listening, as opposed to the official kind of counsellor that I'm talking about in terms of the Hierophant. He's very much a representative of government in that way, and he's about hierarchy. And I think I've covered this in the video about him, but he is very much about hierarchy and maintaining that status quo, whereas the Hermit is about anarchy as opposed to hierarchy, and that means the an part of anarchy means without, and the archy bit of anarchy means without rulers. So the archy is rulers and not rules, because the Hermit has got his own rules. He's not completely chaotic. He's not without order, but it's his own version of that. It's not this mainstream version of it. It's his own order, his own inner order, and he has no authority but himself, which is a sort of tenet of anarchism, self-reliance in that way, and not needing governance. Whereas the Hierophant is authority, and he is government, and within his world, his word is law. But he's doing that because he's a dictator, but because he thinks that's right, and that is the right way, and it's going to give you the best possible framework for operating in the world. He does it with care. I think that the Hermit might say to the Hierophant, you need to free your mind and the rest will follow. But the Hierophant will probably counter that by saying, the rules are there for a reason. They serve you well. And they're both right, aren't they? They're both right. At different times, they're both right. And yet they're both equally wrong. So it's up to us. It really is how we encounter them in that particular moment that they come up for us in the reading, or how we're working with the deck. It's entirely up to us what that means to us at that time. Do we want to go out on a limb and go to the fringe where there might be controversial ideas which might not, society might not look very well on people that go to those edges and look at all ideas, whether they're considered to be out there or not? Or is it going to serve us better to be firmly rooted in tradition, in the tree of tradition, and not? Maybe at that particular point that's what we need, to be more grounded, rooted in the Hierophant's way. And before I finish this slightly shorter video, doing quite well to be a little bit more succinct here, I'm just going to bring in a card that I said I would in an earlier video, which is the Four of Blades, just to contrast this with the Hermit. Obviously I'll come back to all of the minor arcana cards when I cover those in more detail at some point in the future, but for now I just wanted to say that although this card might seem quite similar to the Hermit in the fact that it's a very withdrawn and meditative state that this chap is in here, he's not necessarily seeking anything. The Hermit is very much on a quest. Even though it's not an active quest, it's still a quest. This man is really not seeking anything except for the deep restoration, recuperation. He's going within because he's burnt out, basically. He needs to take time out in order to revitalize and refresh and be ready to go back into the world and do whatever he does. He's not necessarily looking for anything more profound than that. He might obviously come across it, but that's not what his intention is when he's withdrawing, and that's the difference between him and the Hermit. Anyway, that's probably all I've got to say for now. I just thought it was important to bring these chaps back over here a minute. I just thought it was important for us to look at the differences between them because they're fascinating, and I think that we could, obviously it's absolutely up to us how we see the dialogue between them, but it would be really fascinating to get them in a room together and see what they say, and if they appear together in a reading, to see how they communicate to each other and to us at that point. Okay, so that's it for now. I will come back with another major arcana card. I'm not sure what it will be yet. That's the surprise. It is to me as well. It depends who's speaking to me at that particular time, so I can keep the videos as fresh as possible and not feel like I'm just doing them in order, because that's the way it has to be. So that's a little bit more Hermitish than Hierophantish, but that's how it is. Okay, so for now, thank you very much for sharing this with me, and I hope you'll join me again soon. And for now, take care of yourselves, for all other beings that you encounter, and lots of love. Bye.